Hello everyone. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share with loved ones. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. That way, YouTube will keep showing you stories just like this one. Now, let's begin. Look at this face. Sultan Mehmed V. The turban alone probably cost more than your car. That jeweled brooch? A small nation's annual budget? The embroidered robes? Let's just say someone spent a lot of time with very expensive thread. Behind him, you see a map. Not just any map. An empire that stretched from Budapest to Baghdad, from Algeria to Armenia, 3 continents, 600 years of history. And it's all about to disappear. But here's what nobody tells you about the fall of the Ottoman Empire. It's not just history. It's not some dusty story from a century ago that doesn't matter anymore. The fall of the Ottoman Empire is the reason your news feed is full of Middle Eastern conflicts right now. Today, this week, every border dispute, every ethnic tension, every civil war in that region can be traced back to what happened between 1914 and 1923. And it all started with one catastrophically bad decision. October 1914. World War I has just begun. The Ottomans are watching Europe tear itself apart. Germany and Austria-Hungary on one side, Britain, France, and Russia on the other. The Ottoman leadership meets in Constantinople. Smoke-filled rooms, Turkish coffee going cold in ornate cups, maps spread across tables. They have a choice to make. Stay neutral? Join the Allies? Join the Central Powers? They choose Germany. At the time, it seemed logical. Germany was the rising power. German military efficiency was legendary. The Germans had been helping modernize the Ottoman army. Plus, Russia, the Ottomans' historical enemy, was on the other side. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything could go wrong. But to understand why this decision destroyed not just an empire, but reshaped an entire region for the next century, you need to understand what the Ottoman Empire actually was in 1914. Forget the images of Suleiman the Magnificent. Forget the glory days of Ottoman power that made European kings nervous. By 1914, the empire was dying, slowly, painfully. Europeans had nicknamed it the sick man of Europe for decades. That's Victorian-era polite speak for this thing is falling apart and we're all just waiting to grab the good stuff when it finally collapses. The Balkans had already broken away. Greece in 1832, Serbia, Romania, Bulgaria in the 1870s. More territory lost in the Balkan Wars of 1912 to 1913. Nationalism was spreading like wildfire. Arabs in the south, Armenians in the east, Kurds in the mountains. Everyone was discovering this trendy new idea that maybe, just maybe, they didn't want to be ruled by a Turkish sultan in Constantinople anymore. The Young Turks had seized power in 1908, promising reform and modernization. Instead, they delivered authoritarian chaos. They were like someone rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic while simultaneously drilling holes in the hull. The empire was hemorrhaging territory, hemorrhaging money, hemorrhaging legitimacy. And then they decided to join World War I, on the losing side. Ottoman armies marched to war. The plan is to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously, which is a military strategy that has never, ever ended badly. Just ask Napoleon about invading Russia, or Hitler, or Charles V of Sweden. The Ottomans fight in the Caucasus against Russia, in Mesopotamia against Britain, in the Sinai against British forces coming from Egypt, in the Dardanelles against everyone. And here's the thing, at first they don't do terribly. April 1915, Gallipoli. The Allies attempt to knock the Ottomans out of the war with a naval assault and amphibious invasion. Churchill himself pushes for this plan. Quick strike. Seize Constantinople. force the Ottomans to surrender. Easy victory, right? Wrong. The Allied forces land on beaches overlooked by cliffs. Ottoman forces, commanded by a then unknown officer named Mustafa Kemal, rain hell down on them. 8 months of brutal fighting. Trenches in the summer heat, dysentery, bullets, artillery, over 100,000 casualties on both sides. The Allies retreat in January 1916. It's a stunning Ottoman victory, their last great military triumph. The empire that everyone thought was already dead had just handed Britain and France one of their most humiliating defeats of the war. Mustafa Kemal becomes a national hero. Remember that name. He's about to become the most important person in this entire story. But while the Ottomans are winning at Gallipoli, something else is happening in their Arab provinces. Something that will change everything. June 1916, the Hejaz region of Arabia. The city of Mecca. Hussein bin Ali, the Sharif of Mecca, basically the most important Arab leader in the Ottoman Empire, makes an announcement. Revolt. He's declaring independence from Ottoman rule, raising an army, fighting for Arab freedom. But why? The Ottomans have controlled these territories for 4 centuries. What changed? A British officer named T.E. Lawrence. You might know him as Lawrence of Arabia. Here's what Lawrence has been telling Hussein. Help us defeat the Ottomans, raise an Arab army, attack their supply lines, disrupt their forces, and when we win, when the war is over, you'll get your own independent Arab kingdom, from Syria to Yemen, your own nation. Freedom. Hussein believes him. Thousands of Arab fighters believe him. They launch the Arab Revolt, attacking Ottoman railways, blowing up trains, ambushing supply convoys, fighting their former rulers for the promise of independence. It's effective. Ottoman forces in Arabia are suddenly fighting a guerrilla war behind their own lines. They have to divert troops, divert resources. The revolt is working. And Hussein bin Ali is fighting for a promise that will never be kept. Because while he's blowing up Ottoman trains, 2 diplomats are in a room in Europe drawing lines on a map. May 1916. Sir Mark Sykes, British diplomat. François-Georges Picot, French diplomat. They meet in secret. They have a map of Ottoman Arab territories spread out before them, and they start dividing it up like they're splitting a pizza. France gets Syria and Lebanon. Britain gets Mesopotamia and Palestine. Russia gets Armenia and access to the Straits. They draw straight lines. Literally straight lines with rulers. Through deserts, through mountains, through territories that have ethnic groups, tribal affiliations, religious communities that have existed for centuries. None of that matters to Sykes and Picot. They're not consulting anthropologists. They're not talking to local leaders. They're not considering that maybe, just maybe, forcing Sunnis, Shias, Kurds, Christians, Druze, and Alawites into arbitrary states might cause problems. They're drawing lines, claiming territory, protecting strategic interests, oil, trade routes, military bases. That's what matters. The Sykes-Picot Agreement is signed in secret. Hussein bin Ali has no idea. The Arab fighters have no idea. They're still fighting for independence that was promised to them. But independence was never on the table. At the time, Hussein had no idea he was being played like a fiddle at a county fair. Things get worse for the Ottomans, much worse. The Russian front collapses when the Russian Revolution starts. That's good news. One less enemy. But the British are advancing in Mesopotamia. They take Baghdad in March 1917. In Palestine, British forces under General Allenby are pushing north. The Ottomans are losing ground. December 1917, Allenby enters Jerusalem on foot as a sign of respect. The holy city falls to the Allies. And the Arab Revolt is still raging in the south. The empire is crumbling from all sides. November 1918, Germany surrenders. Austria-Hungary dissolves. The war is over. And the Ottoman Empire has lost. October 30th, 1918, the Armistice of Mudros. The Ottomans sign the surrender. Their forces are exhausted. Their economy is destroyed. Their empire is occupied. Allied warships fill the Bosphorus. British troops in Constantinople. French troops in southern Anatolia. Italian troops on the coast. Greek troops preparing to invade. The Sultan is still technically in power, but he's a puppet, a figurehead. He has less authority than a mall security guard. And then comes the treaty that's designed to erase Turkey from the map entirely. August 1920, the Treaty of Sèvres. This treaty doesn't just end the Ottoman Empire, it destroys it, dismembers it, carves it up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Greece gets western Anatolia, including Smyrna, one of the most important cities in the empire. An independent Armenia is created in the east. An autonomous Kurdish region is established in the southeast. The straits are internationalized. What's left for Turkey? A small landlocked territory around Ankara. No access to the Mediterranean, no access to the Black Sea, no resources, no power. It's designed to be a death sentence for Turkish sovereignty. The Sultan signs it. He has no choice. Constantinople is occupied. Allied troops control the government. But remember Mustafa Kemal, the hero of Gallipoli? He's in Anatolia, and he's not signing anything. May 1919, Kemal lands in Samsun on the Black Sea coast. Officially, he's there to help demobilize Ottoman forces. Instead, he starts organizing resistance. This is the twist nobody saw coming. Kemal isn't trying to save the Ottoman Empire. He's trying to kill it. He looks at the corrupt Sultan signing away Turkish territory. He looks at the old Ottoman system with its religious authority and imperial bureaucracy. And he says, "We're done with this. We're starting over." He starts building a nationalist movement. Turkish nationalism, not Ottoman imperialism, not religious authority. A secular Turkish nation-state, 1919-1922, the Turkish War of Independence. It's a revolution and a war at the same time. Kemal is fighting on multiple fronts, against the occupying French forces in the south, against the Italians on the coast, against the Armenians in the east. But the biggest fight is against the Greeks. Greece, with Allied encouragement, invades western Anatolia. Greek forces land at Smyrna and start pushing inland. They dream of restoring Byzantine glory, creating a greater Greece. For 2 years, Greek forces advance. They get within striking distance of Ankara, Kemal's provisional capital. It looks like Greece will win. The Allies are betting on it. The Sultan in Constantinople is accepting it. Kemal refuses to accept it. August 1922, the Battle of Dumlupinar, the Great Offensive. Kemal's nationalist forces launch a massive counterattack. They smash through Greek lines. The Greek army collapses, retreats, flees toward the coast. September 1922. Kemal's forces retake Smyrna. Greek forces evacuate by sea. The city burns. Thousands die. It's brutal. It's bloody. But it's effective. Greece is defeated. The occupation is over. Turkey has won its independence. November 1st, 1922. Kemal abolishes the Sultanate. Sultan Mehmed II, the last Ottoman Sultan, flees Constantinople on a British warship in the middle of the night. 623 years of Ottoman rule end with a Sultan sneaking out like he's dodging rent. The empire is over. But Kemal isn't done. The Treaty of Lausanne replaces the Treaty of Sèvres. Turkey gets recognized as a sovereign nation with borders similar to modern Turkey. The occupation ends. Foreign troops leave. It's a stunning diplomatic victory. Turkey is the only Central Powers nation to reverse its World War I defeat through military force. March 3, 1924. Kemal takes the final step. He abolishes the caliphate. The caliphate, the religious institution that had been the spiritual center of the Islamic world for over 400 years, is gone, canceled, eliminated. This isn't just ending a dynasty. This is severing the connection between Turkish nationalism and Islamic imperial identity. Kemal, now called Atatürk, father of the Turks, starts transforming Turkey at revolutionary speed. New alphabet, Latin script instead of Arabic, new legal system, Swiss civil code replacing Islamic law, new calendar, Gregorian instead of Islamic. Women get the right to vote in 1934, before France, before Italy, before Belgium. Religious education removed from schools. Secular education mandated. Fezzes banned. Western hats required. The call to prayer translated from Arabic to Turkish. It's a cultural revolution. Ataturk is trying to drag Turkey from medieval empire to modern nation-state in a single generation. It's authoritarian, it's top-down, it's brutal to traditionalists. But it works. Turkey survives as an independent state, while the rest of the Ottoman territories become colonial experiments. Because while Turkey is being reborn, the rest of the former Ottoman Empire is being carved up and handed out like party favors. The mandate system, that's what the League of Nations calls it. It's colonialism with a PR makeover. Instead of saying, "We're conquering you," they say, "We're protecting you until you're ready for independence." Spoiler alert, the colonizers never think you're ready. Britain gets 3 mandates: Palestine, Transjordan, and Mesopotamia, which they rename Iraq. France gets 2, Syria and Lebanon. Let's talk about Iraq first, because Iraq is a perfect example of how drawing lines on maps without consulting locals creates disasters. Before World War I, the Ottoman provinces in that region were separate. Basra in the south, Baghdad in the center, Mosul in the north. Different populations, different economies, different religious majorities. Basra, mostly Shia Arabs. Baghdad, mixed Sunni and Shia. Mosul, Kurds and Sunni Arabs. These provinces had never been a unified political entity. They had different relationships with the Ottoman central government, different local leaders, different identities. British officials literally smash them together and call it Iraq. There you go, one country, make it work. It doesn't work. Britain installs a king, Faisal, one of Hussein bin Ali's sons. He's from Arabia. He has no connection to Iraq. He doesn't even speak the local dialect well. The British keep military bases, control the oil, and watch as Iraq struggles with ethnic and religious tensions that will plague it for the next century. Iraq gets nominal independence, but Britain keeps pulling strings. Supporting Sunni minority rule over the Shia majority, supporting Arab nationalism that oppresses Kurds. Fast forward, multiple coups, military dictatorships, Saddam Hussein, the Iran-Iraq War, the Gulf War, the Iraq War. ISIS, all traced back to those lines drawn in 1920. Now Palestine. Oh, Palestine. This is where things get truly messy. Britain made 3 separate contradictory promises for Palestine. 1915-1916, the Hussein-McMahon correspondence promises Arab independence in Palestine. November 1917, the Balfour Declaration promises a Jewish homeland in Palestine. 1920, the mandate system gives Palestine to Britain. 3 promises, same land. What could go wrong? In the 1920s and 1930s, Jewish immigration to Palestine increases. Zionist organizations buy land, establish settlements. Arab Palestinians grow increasingly alarmed. 1936-1939, the Arab Revolt. Palestinian Arabs rebel against British rule and Jewish immigration. Britain can't solve it. They can't reconcile the promises they made. They can't create a system that satisfies both Jewish and Arab populations. 1947, Britain gives up, hands the problem to the United Nations. November 1947, the UN Partition Plan split Palestine into Jewish and Arab states. May 14, 1948, Israel declares independence. Arab armies invade. War. 77 years later, there's still no solution. Two peoples claiming the same land, occupation, settlements, violence, blockades, failed peace processes. All because Britain made promises it couldn't keep and drew borders it couldn't justify. Syria and Lebanon. French mandates? France carves Lebanon out of Syria because they want a Christian majority territory. They literally draw a border to maximize Christian population. Lebanon's constitution requires a delicate sectarian balance. Christian president, Sunni prime minister, Shia speaker of parliament. It's stable until it isn't. 1975 to 1990, Lebanese civil war. 15 years of violence as the sectarian balance collapses. Syria. France rules with divide-and-conquer tactics, empower minorities, suppress the Sunni Arab majority. When Syria gets independence in 1946, it's fractured, weak, prone to coups. Eventually, the Assad family, Alawite Muslims, a minority, takes power, authoritarian rule to hold the country together. 2011, Arab Spring, protests, government crackdown, 2012 present, civil war, 500,000 dead, half the population displaced, the country destroyed, and the Kurds. The Kurds deserve their own section. The Treaty of Sèvres in 1920 promised an independent Kurdish state. 30 to 40 million Kurds finally getting their own country. The Treaty of Lausanne in 1923? No Kurdistan. Instead, Kurds get divided between Turkey, Iraq, Syria, and Iran. One of the world's largest ethnic groups without a state. In Turkey, speaking Kurdish was illegal until the 1990s, Kurdish identity suppressed. Decades of conflict between the Turkish state and Kurdish separatists. In Iraq, Saddam Hussein's Al-Anfal campaign in the 1980s. Chemical weapons, village destructions, genocide, up to 180,000 Kurds killed. In Syria, Kurds denied citizenship, second-class status, until the Civil War, when they carved out autonomous regions. All because the borders drawn in the 1920s ignored their existence. The Arab Spring, protests across the Middle East, Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, people demanding freedom, dignity, economic opportunity, political change. And what happens? Most countries collapse into chaos or authoritarian crackdown. Why? Because the states are artificial. The borders don't match ethnic or religious realities. The governments are authoritarian because that's the only way to hold these arbitrary states together. Syria. Civil war, 500,000 dead, millions displaced. Libya. State collapse, ongoing civil war, failed state. Yemen. Proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Humanitarian catastrophe, famine. Iraq. Instability, sectarian violence. ISIS emerges from the chaos. These aren't separate problems. They're echoes of decisions made between 1916 and 1923. And here's what keeps historians up at night. They knew. The people drawing those borders, the diplomats making those promises, they knew they were creating problems. In 1919, a British official in Iraq wrote, "The three provinces of Mosul, Baghdad, and Basra have never formed a political unit. Forcing them together is a recipe for disaster." Ignored. In 1920, French officials in Syria warned that the borders they were drawing might lead to decades of instability. Ignored. In 1917, British officials debated whether making contradictory promises to Arabs and Jews in Palestine might cause problems. They did it anyway. Why? Because they prioritized their own strategic interests: oil, trade routes, military bases, geopolitical advantage. They figured they'd be running these places as colonies anyway, so the borders didn't matter. Except they didn't keep running them. They eventually left. And the problems remained. Look at the image again. Sultan Mehmed V, the ornate turban, the jeweled brooch, the empire stretching behind him on the map. He died in July 1918, right before the final collapse. Maybe that was mercy. He didn't have to see his empire dismembered, his capital occupied, his dynasty expelled. But we're still living with the consequences of his empire's fall. Turkey today grapples with Atatürk's legacy. How Western should it be? How secular? How democratic? The tension between secular nationalism and Islamic identity still defines Turkish politics. The Middle East still struggles with borders that don't make sense, nations that feel artificial, governments that use authoritarianism to hold together diverse populations that were never meant to be one country. The Kurdish question remains unsolved. Palestinian-Israeli conflict continues. Syrian and Iraqi and Yemeni civil wars rage on. These aren't ancient tribal conflicts. They're not inevitable religious wars. They're not mysterious Middle Eastern problems that Westerners can't understand. They're the direct consequences of decisions made between 1914 and 1923, by diplomats in European hotels, by generals drawing lines on maps, by politicians making promises they never intended to keep. The Ottoman Empire fell in 1922, but it never really left. Its ghost haunts every border dispute, every ethnic tension, every civil war in the region. History doesn't repeat itself, but it echoes. And we're still hearing the echoes of the Ottoman Empire's collapse. If this video helped you understand why the Middle East looks the way it does today, hit that like button. Subscribe for more history that explains the present. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what surprised you most about this story? Because most people don't know this. They see Middle Eastern conflicts and think they're ancient, inevitable, religious. They're not. They're political, modern, the result of specific decisions by specific people in specific rooms. And knowing that changes everything. Thanks for watching.